Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dining for Women's Google Hangout for the month of May. I am Veena Khanke, the Program Director for Dining for Women. And today we have two guests with us. We have Dining for Women's Communications Consultant. Hi, Laura.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Kay Yoder, who is the Director of US Operations for Ripple Africa. Kay is also a Dining for Women chapter member from Sarasota. Hi, Kay.
Hi.
Hello. Ripple Africa is a grassroots organization in the country of Malawi, and they focus on sustainable opportunities for education, health, and environment. So today, Kay is going to discuss the program that we are funding for the month of May. So Kay, why don't you go ahead and talk about the program?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you. I have a slideshow that I would like to show. And first of all, I'd like to just say thank you so much, Veena. I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about Ripple Africa and our work in Malawi, and then more specifically about our fuel-efficient cook stove project that Dining for Women is funding. Ripple Africa was established in 2003 with a goal of empowering communities to help themselves by providing a hand up and not a hand out. Malawi is located here in southeastern Africa. It's about the size of Pennsylvania and is one of the most densely populated countries. It's known as the warm heart of Africa and is home to over 16 million of some of the friendliest people. It's largely an agricultural country with more than half of the population living well below the poverty line and ranking as one of the poorest countries in the world. Nearly 1/5 of Malawi is covered by Lake Malawi, as you can see here. Ripple Africa is located in the northern part of the country directly on the lake. Because we're located in such a rural community, the resources are extremely limited there. So providing just one service wouldn't be enough to make a long-lasting impact. Subsequently, we run many projects in the area in which we live to ensure that our community has lots of opportunities for a positive future. We have projects in education, healthcare, and the environment. Understanding that perhaps education is the best way in which someone can lift themselves out of poverty, we have multiple projects in education. In terms of healthcare, what you may not know is Malawi has the highest number of patients per doctor in the world, with one doctor per 88,000. We're addressing these healthcare deficiencies through these projects. Now, regarding the environment, Malawi is a country that's really rich with natural resources. Over time, however, due to the very large population, these resources are being depleted at an alarming rate. So in order to preserve the environment for future generations, Ripple Africa has multiple projects, from tree planting to fish conservation projects, and of course our fuel-efficient cook stove project that Dining for Women is funding. You know, the story for our fuel-efficient cook stove came as we saw a need for alternative cooking methods because of the growing problem of deforestation within Malawi. As you can see here, at one time most of the country was covered by forest. But today, forest cover in Malawi is approximately 27% of the total land area, mainly because of the population's dependence on wood for cooking. Here is an example of a three-stone fire that is most commonly used throughout Malawi for cooking. Subsequently, wood is the main fuel in Malawi, with 95% of all homes still using wood or charcoal for cooking. Each fire consumes about 3 large bundles of wood per week, like you see here, contributing greatly to the issue of deforestation. In addition, because of the openness of the three-stone fire, women and children breathe in large amounts of smoke, which lead to many respiratory illnesses, vision problems, and even premature death. Burns are also a common health risk due to the positioning of the three-stone fire in the middle of the kitchen. And over 60% of the households we surveyed have reported family members that have been burned, often severely, like this child here, because of the three-stone fire. So in response to all of these issues, in 2009, we began to explore possible solutions, and we focused our efforts on a fuel-efficient cook stove. And after many trials and lots of community feedback, we realized that women wanted to cook two things at one time. So we designed the double burner, and we named it the Changu Changu Moto, which means fast, fast fire. Once we settled on a design that met the needs of the community, we devised a plan to make the cook stove available to everyone. Once we receive interest from a village, the stove and its impact is introduced to the entire community. And then next, staff are recruited from that very same community, and then they're trained. We call these staff members community volunteers. Here are all the materials that are needed to make a Changu Changu Moto. Very simple, low tech. A mixture of soil, manure, and water is put into brick molds until dried to make 26 bricks. Working alongside the household member responsible for cooking, the community volunteer works with them to construct this cook stove, and it takes just about 1 hour. And here's exactly how they're constructed. And once the structure is in place, it's completely covered by a mud mixture. And here is the completed stove, which must dry completely before being used. And here's the stove in action. Involving the household in that construction process is a really important component of our project, so that they can see exactly how to maintain the stove if anything becomes damaged or cracks. And you can see a woman and child repairing their stove because they were involved in the process. Constructing the stove is just the beginning to ensuring that it's successful. As you can see here in the three-stone fire, large pieces of wood are needed. But due to the smaller opening of the Changu Changu Moto, large pieces don't work as effectively as shown here, and even ultimately can destroy the stove. So smaller pieces of wood are needed, which eliminates the need to cut down the trees. And also, instead of burning crops after harvest, as is frequently done, women can use their cassava stems for the Changu Changu Moto. On a daily basis, the Changu Changu Moto uses 66% less wood than a three-stone fire. And not only are trees saved by this reduction, women save approximately 7 to 10 hours per week collecting wood. Or for those living in the urban areas that need to buy their wood, they save a lot of money. In addition to requiring less wood, look at the difference here in the smoke reduction of the traditional three-stone fire with that of the Changu Changu Moto. Less smoke makes this cook stove a much healthier alternative. The project doesn't end once we've constructed the stove and trained on how to use it properly. Because what we've found out over time is that, like most people, human nature, old habits die hard, even when people realize there are better ways of doing things. So to ensure that the cook stove becomes a new habit, replacing the three-stone fire, community volunteers and managers conduct regular random visits to ensure consistent and proper usage and to troubleshoot any problems. We have an ongoing monitoring and evaluation system, and we keep detailed records on each and every household in a database. To date, approximately 80% of the households with a Changu Changu Moto are still using the cook stove regularly after 2 years. So the 2-year $45,000 Dining for Women grant for our cook stoves has multiple long-term benefits. 3,000 stoves constructed and monitored for 2 years. Since the average family size in Malawi is 5, 15,000 people will benefit from the cook stove. Incredible amounts of wood and trees will be saved, helping to reduce deforestation. Significant time will be saved on a weekly basis from collecting the firewood. And for those households living in urban areas that they buy the wood and the charcoal, a lot of money will be saved. Accidental burns are significantly reduced because of the enclosed design of the cook stove. And due to less smoke, mothers and children's health will benefit. So on behalf of Ripple Africa and the people of Malawi, we just want to extend a huge thank you to Dining for Women for making this project possible and really benefiting the health and the lives of so many people and helping to preserve the environment for future generations.
Well, thank you, Kay, for that presentation. And perhaps I could ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Cook stoves have had mixed results all over the world where they have been instituted, but there have been different kinds of them. So tell us more about the challenges that Ripple Africa has faced, because you have done so many of these now.
I think that our initial challenge is helping the people to understand the effects of cutting down trees and deforestation on their lives, but also the lives of their children and their grandchildren. So once we can help them to understand those long-term implications, negative implications, they understand the value of the cook stove. But then our next hurdle becomes, how do we make the cook stove become a way of life? They are so accustomed to using the three-stone fire that even though that they understand with their head all of the benefits, it's just human nature for them to go back. Also, one big obstacle is finding the right people for community volunteers and managers of the project. And we have found very early on that women are so instrumental because they themselves are doing the cooking in their own homes and understand the benefits of the stove. And so other women are much more apt to listen to their experiences and to see the value.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So since you've been following up on the women, how exactly have the women's lives changed with the use of the stove?
Well, I think it's probably very much the same as for you and for me. When we have something that comes into our life that makes our life a little bit easier, it's very much a personal choice in how we decide to use that extra time. For the ladies in Malawi, we found that they spend a lot more time farming, also spend time with their children and family, and many times girls in the family are taken out of school or aren't allowed to study after school because there's so many things they need to do, including collecting firewood. So it really helps them to continue with their education. And just for the women to be able to take advantage of some things like adult literacy classes that we provide, or just have a little bit of downtime, the benefits and the ways in which they spend that time is just so huge.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
In terms of, we talked about this in terms of how it impacts everybody else in the family. We were talking about this earlier about those who go for fishing and how deforestation has kind of impacted fishing. So is that kind of part of your education for the community in terms of it's not just about the cook stoves and the homes, but it's about long-term sustainability of occupations and, different kinds of things?
Well, exactly. And because deforestation is happening so quickly in Malawi, in fact, almost 2 acres are cleared by burning or cutting down of trees every 10 minutes. And the people have noticed that the rains have decreased over time. It used to be 2 rainy seasons, now it's just down to 1, which greatly impairs their ability to grow crops, which is how they live. So to help them to understand that connection, also because of the slash and burn method of farming, where you just go and burn a crop once you're finished with the harvest, the topsoil becomes so damaged, and when the rains do come, all of that topsoil is really just washed away and into the lake, which is such a valuable resource for the people of Malawi. Also, when it does rain, because there aren't trees in place to soak in the water, flooding is much more prevalent. In fact, Malawi experienced some major flooding this year. So we spend a lot of time and effort on the environmental projects, and all of our environmental projects are very integrated. They don't stand in isolation of each other, with our tree planting, with our fruit tree planting, with our fish conservation project. So everything is very intertwined and interconnected.
Can you elaborate about the trees that you were encouraging them to plant, the fruit trees and the possible firewood?
Sure. One of the things that we do, also, and especially in an area in which there aren't possibly a lot of trees, maybe a more urban area, when we help construct the Chengu Chengu Moto, we also provide them with quick-growing trees that they can plant there right on their property, and these trees grow so quickly that they can take the branches and it rejuvenates itself. And so rather than going and cutting other trees, they're able to use this instead of destroying the forest or having to spend a lot of money by going out and buying the wood and the charcoal. But yes, we have forest conservation projects in which we have helped to develop guidelines for which people aren't able to go in and cut down trees, and so we've been very instrumental in that. In our tree planting programs, we have people planting trees and replenishing what has been taken down. That's a huge effort, and lots of projects going in that. We have fruit tree projects so that the trees that are being grown are able to also provide other forms of food and nourishment for the people.
Well, we're kind of running out of time, so this is my last question for you. What are the future plans for Ripple Africa? I mean, these projects are time-consuming. You have probably plans to cover more villages, but then what else?
Well, like you said, one of our big goals is to expand the Chengu Chengu Moto project, the tree planting, forest conservation. We are trying to become better at what we do and more effective and efficient. And because we are so focused on our community, we have become a model for other organizations. We are the only organization in Malawi doing these kinds of projects. And so we are wanting to share what we've learned with other organizations so that they're able to implement the same within their communities.
Well, thank you, Kay, so much. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody who have been part of our Google Hangout today. A few updates. We have been updating on social media all the information that we have been receiving from our programs in Nepal. We have some updates on our website, too. And all of you can look forward to another blog that is going to appear soon about our 3-part series on Ebola. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Kay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.